Hello, dear friends. It's very difficult to separate the wheat from the chaff because everything is so tangled, and because things are never what they seem in the media. March 2022 was a crazy month, and April always starts with an April's Fool Day prank in America, before the serious fun begins. It's all going to be intense and dramatic, as O.J. Simpson said on Groundhog Day. The stew cooking is bigger than we can imagine. It is a paradigmatic shift in the world economy, in culture, and in spirituality. Opinion piece. Who said this would be easy? The cosmic clock is ticking. The great change is upon us. The transformation is slow and difficult. It's like an initiation ceremony. QFS is light years away from blockchain. The whole soap opera is about to end. Paradigm shift in the global economy. Truth is a scarcer commodity than food. Gods drive man who they want to destroy. A cashless society would harm millions of citizens. Algeria doesn't rule out raising the price of its gas for Spain. New online dump of unknown Wikileaks files. Let's start. It is one thing to be optimistic and another thing to be naive. Every natural process of metamorphosis is difficult, slow and gradual, and fixing the well is the most complicated thing there is, especially when there are many people who do not want to change. The hardest thing of all is to get rid of the old, to which we are attached. Who has not a hard time with constipation to get rid of their waste that refuses to come out? This is a lot like that effort to awaken the masses. The game is over when the public knows the truth. All psychotherapy is painful but liberating, and in the end suffering becomes happiness. March was a crazy month, full of activity. A lot was going on, and the people need to digest it. But this is just the beginning. April showers are approaching to the mother of all bombs, and events are about to unfold. The dark side has lost the narrative, and they can't control what's coming, no matter how they spin it. The only thing they'll have left is to shut it all down, but the good guys are ready for that. No escape and no deals. There are increasing signs that all of us in the West are watching a giant show, and the show is about to end according to Benjamin Fulford. Did you know, for example, that Ukraine has not declared war on Russia? Also that Russia's gas is still being shipped through that country is still the main source of revenue for the Ukrainian government? Moreover, despite the embargo, Russian oil exports to the US continue and even increase. For example, in the week of March 12-18, the US bought 70,000 barrels per day of Russian oil, up 80% from the previous week. Initiation ceremony. According to Fulford, high-level sources in Eastern and Western secret societies say that the funny show being staged is part of a process to awaken people in the West who have been deeply brainwashed. It is being set up as a kind of initiation ceremony for the West. In anthropology, such ceremonies are called liminal events and refer to things like weddings or coming-of-age ceremony, which mark an important transition in life. In this case, the ceremony is performed to usher in a new era of love, progress, and harmony with nature. This will become clear soon, sources promise. However, before that happened, a very real international police and agency crackdown must be completed against the ancient sinister cult that took over the highest level of power in most Western countries. For years, they have been trying to stage a fake Armageddon. The spectacle we are being subjected to on our screens is their reenactment of the four horsemen of the apocalypse: famine, Ukrainian war, death and conquest of the New World Order. In other words, the entire planet has rebelled against their rule. The key to their ultimate defeat is to overthrow of their control of the financial system. Since the mafia mainly controls fake or fiat money backed by nothing, taking control of the real stuff is the key to defeating them. Sanctions. If you still believe the West can design sanctions to maximize pain from Russia and minimize financial and price stability risks in the West, you might as well believe in unicorns, notes a Credit Suisse report. These days, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Russia, Nigeria, etc. refuse to sell oil to the West in exchange for fiat currency. In quotes, what we want is an equitable world, free of wars, aggressive projects or attempts to pit one country against other. What we want is to discuss how to live on this planet in the future. Too many problems have been accumulating, and the existing institutions have not been able to solve them. It turns out that liberal democracy is not liberal and it is not democracy, said Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. The Chinese and others agree. The US and NATO are not in a position, in quotes, everything, are not in a position to judge the moral principles of any country until it apologizes and compensates for the damage and suffering it has caused to the people of Yugoslavia, Iraq, Syria and Afghanistan, says Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying. India is also India also agrees. When British government tried to send a high-powered delegation to India to convince them to isolate Russia, they were told they were not welcome. Turkey. The Turks, historical rivals of the Russians, also disagree. In quotes, the West fought against Muslims from Afghanistan to Libya, from Iraq to Somalia, and on top of that, they are now asking for help from us. Close quotes. Turkey. Erdogan went to the meeting in Brussels with a GPS anklet. He is now working with the coalition. The Turk side will do anything to get Turkey and Russia to start a war in the Black Sea. Erdogan spoke with Putin, and Putin asked him to mediate between the West and Russia over Ukraine. However, Erdogan disappeared from official Turkish news sites, indicating that he is still not allowed to return to Turkey. In quotes, everyone must realize that the deadline is approaching. Checkmate is coming. The final implosion of the dark side is imminent. Put on your helmets and divine armor, because before they leave, they are going to try to take as many people with them as possible, warns a source. A critical mass in the West is now waking up to the wrongs committed against its people. When Justin Castro appeared last week before the European Parliament, most parliamentarians walked out, but some stayed to whip him. Of course, the mob is throwing up a storm to try to avoid justice. World Summit. While much of the mainstream world has spent the last few days obsessing over and debating the spectacle of Will Smith slapping comedian Chris Rock, international elitists gathered in Dubai for the 2022 World Government Summit. From March 28 to 30, corporate media journalists, heads of state and CEOs from some of the world's most profitable companies gathered to discuss how to shape the direction of the next decade and beyond. Second, the World Government Summit is underway this week in Abu Dhabi, and we already have a bombshell to report. Dr. Pippa Malmgren, a leading economist who worked as a special advisor to former President Bush, made a statement that confirms everything we have been reporting for quite some time, that the paradigm shift, a cashless society, is just around the corner. Malmgren stated, in quotes, "We are on the verge of dramatic change where we are on the verge. And I will say this boldly. We are on the verge of abandoning the traditional system of money and accounting and introducing a new one. And the new accounting is what we call blockchain. It means digital. It means having an almost perfect record of every transaction that happens in the economy, which will give us more clarity about what's going on. However, the doctor forgot to say that the quantum financial system is light years away from blockchain." Fourth, Pippa Malmgren warns, or Pippa, that system is at the door. And once it is here, it marks the beginning of the end, because no one will be allowed to buy or sell without becoming a digitized hybrid human being. I think it will be possible for us to live outside this system for a while. But we need a plan, a network. We will have to live in community with like-minded humankind. 5. Global elites actually had the guts to title their first session at the World Government Summit, in quotes, "Are we ready for a new world order?" Some of the world's most powerful leaders teased more supply chains disruptions, energy system difficulties, and the China-like digital dollar, something even the New York Times now admits could be on the way soon. 6. The digital financial system they already have in the works, which is not the QFS, is something out of our West nightmares. It includes digital IDs and a digital currency that would allow them to monitor and control every penny anyone has or spends. Economy. First, oil stays below $100. Second, oil price falls after truce in Middle East conflict. Third, truce in Yemen goes into effect in hopes of stopping the war. 4. Treasury bonds just suffered their worst quarter in a half a century. 5. The euro pressured by rumors of new sanctions on Russia. 6. Inflation soars to record high. Eurozone inflation rose to a record 7.5% in March from a year earlier, as the war further boosted already rising energy costs. 7. Algeria doesn't rule out making the price of its gas more expensive for Spain. 8. A Slovakian minister says paying in rubles could be an option as the country needs gas. 9. Poland calls for tougher sanctions against Russia, which it considers ineffective. 10. The ECB expects to raise rates after the ending bomb purchases in the third quarter. 11. The war could further increase the price of automobiles. 12. Accelerating Turkish inflation to a new 20-year high leaves the lira vulnerable. 13. China includes a dozen more cities in its digital yuan trials. 14. Construction has resumed on 95% of China Evergrande's projects. 15. China's technology sector is losing its luster amid job cuts, subdued growth, and regulatory scrutiny. 16. China changes audit secrecy rules to stop exclusions. Supply crisis. First, since Russia has thrown down the gauntlet by demanding payments in rubles for gas and oil, the collapse of business and lack of fuel for homes and buildings of all kinds is coming within a week and could cause upheaval in European society. Second, sanctions against Russia crumble as the ruble has recovered all post-sanctions losses and now trades higher than before. Less than a week after Joe Biden claimed that his unprecedented sanctions has reduced the ruble to rubble, Russia's currency has recovered all its losses and now trades higher than before the war began. Third, farmers paid to stop growing food. When Biden and Trudeau announced food shortages, farmers are paid to stop farming. Chickens are now a legal animal in more municipalities, requiring a permit due to alleged bird flu. The European Union is slaughtering livestock as it runs out of animal feed, and the Netherlands is seriously considering a meat tax. 4. Organic farming. Perhaps it is time for a new and better way of farming, one that doesn't rely on toxic chemicals and doesn't rape Mother Earth. Solutions already exist and are being used to grow organic food and fish in all climates. 5. To address this concept of not having the usual toxic chemical fertilizers, there are many alternatives as well. 6. Overall, I feel it is best to try to control one's sacred space and not add more suffering, because we are in the battle of all time, which is also the battle for the mind. Europe. First, European nations begin rationing food and fuel. Countries around the world, especially in Europe, have begun to implement policies that ration food and fuel, after most nations of the continent imposed economic sanctions on Russia. Second, Easter tortillas in 2022 will be the most expensive in history in Spain. Third, Spain began experiencing sporadic shortages of different products such as eggs, milk, and other dairy products, almost immediately after the outbreak of the war. In early March, major supermarkets such as Mercadona and Makro began rationing sunflower oil. Spain's government even went further and gave stores the option of imposing temporary limits on the amount of certain products that customers buy. Fourth, Germany and Austria move closer to rationing gas supplies. Both countries have taken steps to ration their fuel supplies after disruptions in the flow of natural gas from Russia due to a standoff over payments. Rumors of war. First, Russia increases pressure on Donbass and gives Kiev a breather. Second, the French government has fired its top spy chief, General Eric Bidot, from the Directorate of Military Intelligence, because he was surprised by the war in Ukraine. Third, on March 30th, the forces of the Donetsk People's Republic shot down 2 Ukrainian helicopters sent for the evacuation of the ringleaders of the Ukrainian nationalists from Mariupol. On March 28th, the Russian military shot down a Ukrainian Mi-8 helicopter sent to pick up the commanders of the Azov battalion. 4. Unusual Ukrainian helicopter attack inside Russia destroys fuel depot. With the fog of war, it is difficult to know exactly what is going on. But one thing is for sure, the fuel depot inside Russia was attacked. Maybe it was the NATO Special Forces team. Was it done to lure and provoke Russia to attack inside the NATO country? Curious. First, a fireball explodes over the Popocatépetl volcano, and there is another Clash M solar flare in the sun's activity parade. Second, sun erupts with 17 single sunspot flares, sending solar storms toward Earth. At least 17 single sunspot solar flares have erupted in space in recent days, including some charged particles that can create a colorful spectacle in Earth's sky. The solar flares originated from a hyperactive sunspot called AR2975, which has been shooting off flares since Monday, March 28th. We may soon see some moderated storms in the Earth's sky due to the stellar event. Third, a canyon of fire just opened up on the sun. Yesterday, April 3rd, a filament of magnetism shot out of the sun's atmosphere. At the exit, it carved a gigantic canyon of fire. The glowing walls of the canyon are at least 20,000 kilometers high and 10 times as long. Since then, a coronal mass ejection has emerged from the explosion site. The cloud will graze the Earth on April 7th. Fourth, a minor geomagnetic storm is possible this week in response to a pair of approaching solar storms. The first, launched by a flare, could graze Earth's magnetic field on April 6th. The second, hurled away by the sun by an exploding filament of magnetism, could strike a glancing blow on April 7th. Their combined effect could produce northern lights. 5. Grand Conjunction on April 12th. One of the most important astrological events in 2022 will occur on April 12th, when Jupiter and Neptune form a conjunction in Pisces, an aspect that has not happened since 1856, and that few generations are fortunate enough to experience. Jupiter is associated with luck, expansion and growth, while Neptune is associated with dreams, ideals and beliefs. Both planets are the natural rulers of Pisces, so a conjunction between them in the sign they rule is a powerful spiritual boost. Sixth, Venus and Jupiter will have a close encounter this month. In addition, April will also see the annual lighted meteor shower, which will peak in intensity on the night of the 21st to the 22nd. The two stars will have a fairly close encounter in the pre-dawn sky in an event that will begin on April 29th and end on May 1st, with a peak on April 30th. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.